Hello, my name's Craig. I'm a music producer and a writer, and I work for Ableton as part of the Loop team. And I'd like to welcome you to this Loop session, which is part of a series of events that we do here at the Loop team to inspire music makers by introducing you to artists whose practice we think is in some way extraordinary, to learn about how they approach music, how they think about it, how they create things in the studio, and also on stage. That's really what this session is about. It's about how we get from the studio to the stage. Our guest today makes it look easy. Yohi Kim makes music as machìna. She was born in Korea. She trained as a K-pop singer and launched a very successful career in that industry before realizing one day that the pop process was making her hate the thing that she loved the most, which is making music. She quit the biz, she moved to Japan, where she knew nobody, and she started making what she called selfish music using modular synths, Ableton Live, and her own voice, which she once described as a special kind of oscillator. Machìna, the name of her new project, was everything that K-pop was not. It was idiosyncratic, emotionally complex, quite spontaneous, structurally experimental, and made mostly to please no one but herself. But now let's meet Yohi. How are you doing?
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure. It's nice to see you here in Berlin, right? When we first started talking about doing this session together, we thought we were going to be on a Zoom call.
Right.
But here you are.
Yeah, I mean, I was already planned to come here, and then the timing was just right, so we're here now. So nice.
So good. Yeah. You once told me that you come to Berlin to study, but you're not going to school. What are you studying?
I'm studying you guys.
What,
yeah.
Ableton? Or?
Oh, no, I mean, generally like cultural.
Oh, us Berliners.
Yeah. I think when I'm trying to learn or like starting to do electronic music, Europe has such a huge inspired to me. Yeah. And then I wanted to learn this scene through modern way or also like just really deeply cultural way. I think it's really important to learn the culture when you make a culture, like music. So yeah, I decided to stay here a longer time. I did already last year, and then this time I like to repeat, so I'm here for that. Yeah.
Right, so you're studying the culture because you want to make music that will resonate with people here.
Also, I wanted to react directly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a reason. Yeah.
This is interesting to me because, you know, I know from what you've just said and also from conversations with you before that you're an artist who thinks quite a lot about audiences and how they react to things and, you know, the degree to which what you're doing is moving or exciting for them. But you've also described your process in the studio as selfish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you still consider yourself a selfish artist in some sense?
I think I will be all the time.
Yeah.
But I think the way I think I'm learning how to communicate, how to express myself to the not selfish way, but so when I'm creating, I probably most try to selfish as much possible to selfish. Right. Just basically, I don't try to, copy or listen anything. Yeah. Really kind of strict way. Yeah. But in the end, when you performing on the stage, eventually. It's really important to communicate audience and then to show yourself kind way, to understandable way, and then that's actually most key that I'm learning here, because obviously Berlin, Europe scene has a really exciting party scene compared than what I grow, and I'm learning and then try to communicate. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
I want to hear more about this, but I think this might be a good point. Since we're going to talk a lot about your approach to performance and how you put performance together, we should take a look at just a little evidence of you on stage. Let's watch now Yohi performing a track called Namu Amitabul for Never on stage. Yohi, you once described your process in the studio as a conversation with machines. When you're producing and composing, you can be spontaneous and follow your ideas wherever you and your tools take them, right? Like you're engaged in this conversation, and it's just you and the tools that you're using, and the result is a piece of music or a track. When you think about performing that piece of music for people, like you're doing there, does this conversation continue on stage, or is it more like a recreation of what happened?
Right. So the major thing I changed myself to when I create music since the pop and now independent musicians. I think because as an independent musician, you have to roll a lot of you have to roll by yourself a lot of things. You have to be your manager, you have to be your own stylist, you have to be a production manager, like, singer, engineer, everything. And I was really focused on that. When I'm starting creating music, I was already thinking about like how this music will be sound on the stage. And that changed really major thing, because when I'm, let's say, maybe making a pop music, maybe you're thinking about like the rhythm, or if you are a performer or a dancer, you're thinking about like how you movement with the sound. But when I'm thinking about on the stage independent musician with electronic machines, I think you get to conversate with the machine that this is my dancer, this is my band member, right?
Yeah.
So that was the major thing I changed. So I really, when I'm composing the new project as a machìna, I also thought about that in my mind. And I turn on all the machines, like my band member. Basically, you are in a studio rehearsal room with
jamming with
my machines. Yeah. And then I recording like maybe like 20 minute, 10 minute, whatever you wanted to feel okay or fun, having fun, basically. And then the result, obviously, like crop and then mixing stuff, but still, it's really big change to me that I actually thinking about all the things at the same time.
Yeah.
And then that actually helped me a lot to bring this material, final result to the stage. So it was already calculated.
I think I know what you mean, but maybe just to zoom in a little bit more. Does that mean that when you're improvising with the Modular in the studio, for example, are you kind of making mental notes about patches and workflows and things, so that if you need to recreate this later, you could do it?
Actually, I leave a lot of mistakes.
Right.
Yeah, so I just do whatever I feel like. Of course, when I'm starting, I tend to like have a little theme. Like example, namu tabu. I really like the word, and I wanted to make like something like a pray and like strong emotions feeling. And I keep it in mind. And then even when I'm patching, I wanted to try the textures similar that emotions.
Right. Yeah.
So basically everything is coming together, but still free.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still allow yourself this freedom.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have some great questions already from you. Thank you very much. One here from Carlo, who wants to know, how do you evaluate your performances in the creation process? Do you record yourself, or do you have trusted advisors? I guess if I'm interpreting this right, it's like Carlos wants to know, as you're preparing a piece to be performed, how do you know how it's going? Like, do you record a take of you performing it live and then watch it back or listen to it back and say, oh, that looks good, but I would do it this way maybe now? Yeah.
Actually, I do multiple times, but always first take is the best.
Yeah.
And then I just I love making mistakes. That's why I started Modular synthesizer.
Right.
And then because when you think and you act, it's kind of obvious to yourself.
Yes.
And it's not fun for me anymore. And then, just making mistake and then make that mistake into something new creation and textures. It makes me feel more creative somehow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because again, you're being intuitive and responsive, right? Which is another way of saying being authentic. That you're responding to an actual moment in an authentic way. Yeah, and then that is the music. Yeah.
I cherish that moment, I think. Yeah.
Right, but again, I guess for me, and perhaps this is what Carlo is getting at too. I wonder about like what you're talking about here is the creation process, right? Like the process of composing a piece of music. If you then have to perform it, would you keep that mistake in there, or would you allow yourself to make a different mistake on stage?
I use a lot of randomize. I have a like
randomizers,
different kind of module
Yeah.
for the randomize, but also in a scale.
Yeah, right.
So yeah.
So you can kind of improvise, but know that you're safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I think on the stage, mistakes lovely, but in your studio, but on the stage, I think also you have to communicate people and you know what people likes, and then I think it's find a balance with you. I know some people that maybe if you limited yourself like a scale or anything, maybe too structure, it could be not maybe perfect live set, but I think it is really important to aware that, and also you can be free.
Yeah.
I mean, why not just having a little limitation with the scales, or so you know you can be really, really free, not thinking about like, oh, this patching is that or that. So yeah, I think I'm using it. I like to use it in a smart way to actually having a little limitation or little structures. Then you can be really, really free, and also people will safely enjoy the music.
I mean, this is important, right? You spoke then about wanting to be free on stage and also being able to enjoy yourself, which is super important.
Yes.
And I think this is often really confusing for electronic musicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the question of how to reproduce what you did in the studio on stage, but also the question of how to make that fun for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you decide? Okay, so I have two questions, I guess. First of all, are there parts of your music where you're like, it's not possible or not practical to reproduce this on stage? Maybe I just have to have it playback. Like, do you ever do that, or is everything in your show kind of created on the spot?
So I have a little theme to myself that I wanted to focus on choice and then limitation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and if I so on my live set, not action one before my album set, I want to focus on my vocal first. That's my first priority, and then second my modular sound, and then I choose the little lead sound or like whatever I think this is important to maybe melodical way or a rhythmic way. I choose those super important elements, and then when I do the vocal, I play back because this is the vocal part that I wanted to focus and show to people.
Yes.
And then I also made section that the free part, which is like improvisation. Then because I have to focus that, I let really free, only one maybe really just modular thing, only one sound that you can ever make on the stage. I think to have that balance is really important to me. At least,
Right, so you build in moments in your set where you can improvise and actually create something spontaneous and new on stage.
Yeah, I think that's really important to yourself also, so you can have fun each time, and then people feel more special on your set too.
Right. They know they've witnessed a unique event.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a question from Nicholas. He wants to know, do you have the exact same setup in the studio and stage, or do you have a special setup and a process to adapt to the stage? So he's talking specifically about gear, I guess, and how to work with Ableton Live on stage. Is it the same? Are you kind of just taking your studio rig to the stage, or are you adapting it?
It depends on the stage, I guess. When you can, obviously also budget. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things to think.
Right, how much stuff you can fly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can bring a lot of more gear, I would definitely add more to make it more fun myself to audience, both. But if I have to myself limited, like if I have to fly like far away, like Berlin or anywhere, then I do make a limitation. And both are really works well, but it is really depends on the stage and the party or festival. Yeah. Actually, practical, to be honest.
Right, you have to be practical.
It is really practical.
Yeah. One more question from Shishani. I like this one. How does the audience's response influence your show in real time, or does it, I guess?
To be honest, I tend to not really react from the audience because I'm still really shy because, I do a lot of live set. Like I sometimes do DJ set, but I mostly do live set. And then when I'm doing it, I feel like naked, because this is my babies. And then I'm doing it, but sometimes I feel really shy, so I don't really like to actually feel and look, to be honest. but I set myself.
You don't really like to look the audience
and
in the eye.
I don't really want it to react because sometimes it really reacts me. So maybe I made a mistake or I go like too much, but I like to keep my set level of my emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's perfection. I mean, I want it to be really perfect. What I make, I want it to be deliver the level I wanted to deliver.
Yes, like you've worked on it really hard and you've got it right, and this is what people are going to get.
Yeah, and then I know some people or wrong time, or it can be like, many different elements you can be reflection, and then I want to avoid. But sometimes when I'm in really nice audience or good weather, if I get like a lot of reaction, I'm happy, I really get happy, and sometimes I never do, but like maybe like shout to them like, hey, thank you, I sometimes do that.
Yeah.
But normally I try to keep myself really in my control. To be honest,
like in a way, maybe the answer to Shoshani's question is that you've already done this research beforehand, right? Like on trips like this, where you go somewhere and you sort of immerse yourself in a culture to understand what audiences are like.
Yeah.
That's kind of your way of understanding the audience's needs and giving them something. But when you do it, it's a show and it's done. Let's take a look at some more of you performing live. I really like this one. It's a performance from Neighbor on stage. From machìna playing at Neighbor on stage. Yohi, when you moved to Tokyo, you got into modular synthesis. But at that time, you told me that you hadn't actually heard that much electronic music or modular music. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What attracted you then to these machines?
I think I was simply really fell in love with the look first. Actually, I'm really visual person. That I like beautiful things. That's my honest opinion, and also the sound. I mean, I never felt that this strong and historical. I mean, I didn't know the historic background before, but as soon as I just hear the sound, the machine sound, it touched me. I just really felt something special on it, and I just decided I really want to make music with these machines.
Yeah.
That was like the one really crush that I felt.
A crush.
It was. I was really like, wow, this is beautiful. Just beautiful. Yeah.
I understand what you mean about the sound, and that's evident from listening to your music and looking at your performances. It's like it's a celebration of the potential of sound that these things can make. But I'm at the moment I'm sort of curious about the look, right? Like you said that they were beautiful to look at. You had a kind of an aesthetic crush. Was it looking at the machines on their own, or was it watching people play them or use them, or sort of a combination of both?
Yes, I think on your own, on his machine on, because I tend to more likely the vintage one, and then when you see the vintage machine, because there are like so many details buttons that you never see on the computer, and then there's like little functions and color code and everything.
Beautiful.
It's the cares who made this one, or like the care of like how people wanted to make sounds. Just everything, you can feel it, and then that's really intimate that you can see through the machines. And I think I also really, like you said, I didn't came from the electronic musician. Like I have a like big kind of hole that I really don't know much about musicians, electronic musicians. When I'm even like talking with conversation with other DJs or like other musicians, I really sometimes don't know like the major super famous. Maybe I should know the tracks or band, because I came from really just purely the machines and then just beauty of it and then the sound and textures.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of weird, but I don't know. Yeah, I came from there. I guess,
When I watch you performing in those 2 clips from Never on Stage, the way you perform with the modular is exciting. You know, like you bring some theatre and drama to it. Did it always strike you as an exciting thing to like? Did it always strike you as a performance instrument? Like, were you immediately was your imagination fired by the idea of performing with it, or was that more of something that had to develop?
So I choose modular because exactly the reason I wanted to make performance.
Right.
A stage.
Yeah.
And I confirmed this idea was right to say Don Buchla said when he creating the music easel,
which is what you use.
He said he wanted to make this electronic sound music to the performance. So that was the whole reason. That's why he made the whole suitcase, so you can travel with this.
Yeah.
And then, I was so happy that, I mean, modular, now people are really using a lot. It's becoming really popular. But before that, I think it's really smart ideas to just bring it, making your own synthesizer kind of compact. You know, if you're thinking about keyboardist or drummer, you have to bring like big, like they really tend to big or like heavy. But in modular system, you can really choose whatever you want if you know what you want to do.
Right, it can be as big or as small as you want it to be. Yeah.
So that was really smart and easy option to me. Yeah.
This actually connects to an interesting question here from Obivanke, who asks, do you have a fixed modular setup? And if so, how are you changing to different sounds during live shows?
So I do have a fixed, I think it depends on the set. When I'm doing the album set, like on Namu Tower, I tend to not change too much because it's already their structure, and I wanted to show my music through performing with the modular. So I don't really use much crazy like changing patching, but I tend to use a lot of filters, cutoff, which is obviously sound really dynamically change. But I do also use a lot of random melodic stuff with the scale on it.
Yeah. Again, a little safety net there to make it fun for you. Yeah. I want to come back a little bit to the idea of performance itself, right? And what we're doing on stage, or what you were doing on stage. You spoke the first conversation we had. You spoke about the idea of electronic artists seeing themselves as backroom people. You know, like people who are sometimes like that they're in the background, they're in the studio making the sounds, but they don't always imagine themselves being on stage. You know, and sometimes finding yourself up there is a bit of a surprise.
Right.
Yeah, there are lots of people who like making music but have no desire really to be on stage or to be performers, I guess, because they're shy or self-conscious.
It's difficult. It's not easy. Yeah.
It's not easy, right? Yeah. But there is still pressure on these people to perform, right? Like it's one of the few ways for musicians to make money. So when you get that call, you have to find maybe you might want to find a way of doing it. Do you think it's possible to be shy or introverted and still come up with a meaningful and effective way of performing your music on stage?
Of course. There's several ways, and I've done tons of ways to express yourself, especially electronic music. I think it is a good idea if you are really, really shy, using a visual, which is like kind of Mutag or every other festival has a lot of opportunity to collaborate with these two together. Yeah. And I mean, you don't need to be performer, but there's definitely a way to express yourself through other way, because we have electricity and we have tons of options for it. I would love to see more options too, but because I was trained by performer when I was in a pop scene, I could do it better, maybe more confident way, because I was practicing.
Yeah. That's interesting what you said a moment ago. We have electricity, right? There are things on stage that can be automated or can be sort of programmed or can be
Exactly.
Yeah, you can if you don't feel spectacular yourself, then you could put the spectacle in other places, like in
Sure. I
visuals
mean,
or
lighting, visual, even using shadow.
yeah.
Yeah, there's many ways.
I want to talk some more about that in a moment. But yeah, we've got some more great questions from the Loop community. Thank you so much. This one from Satira. How do you find the balance between arpeggios, random, and algorithmic stuff with composing? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Put some scale on it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, because I taught jazz, I love free jazz. I really love free jazz, like going crazy with the melody and make people feel uncomfortable. I think that's kind of necessary sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if you are really too safe, I feel a little boring, to me at least. So yeah, I mean, having a randomized and then with a scale on it, but sometimes you just off or like different patching to make it so uncomfortable. But after that, when you come back, it's much feel like really good, you know?
Right.
Just on, off, little, slight way, but come back on. I think that's really good kind of tips, maybe.
Yeah,
could be
you're talking about
on the
building some danger or risk
Yeah,
a little
exactly.
bit, just a little bit within limits into the performance. This helps to keep it exciting for you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Especially on stage, will be really. It makes you smile.
Yeah. Right.
On the stage.
Right.
Yeah, and that's really important.
Let's talk about gesture and expression for a moment, because I find this really interesting too. Like when when we're in the studio and we come up with something great, of course you move, right?
I dance crazy.
Yeah, right?
I cuddle my cat.
You cuddle your cat, you dance, you make the stank face, you do you do all these kind of
and
things.
I open the beer.
Yeah. Right? A little celebration.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I do.
Yeah. If you're touring, you're playing a lot of shows, sometimes you might be playing the sounds that made you feel that way in the first place, but you're not really feeling it the way that maybe you don't feel it the way that you did originally, Is there a way of kind of performing that, like bringing that back to life using gesture and physical expression, so that even though the moment itself is gone for you, the audience still feels it? Does that make sense? Like, I guess what I'm asking is, are there times where you have to fake it a little bit, you exaggerate, where you might exaggerate a gesture or a movement or something, so
on the
that
stage.
so that it makes some impact or some dynamism, even if it's just like a little, if it is just patching or using equipment or something like that, doing it in a way that exaggerates it and brings it a little bit more to life.
So I'm not sure I understood correctly, but the first question I wanted to answer, that when you feel like not quite right when you planned on it, I think you have to be accepted.
Right.
It happened.
Right.
And it's performance.
Yeah.
And you have to be. I mean, this mindset takes time, but it takes time. It's not gonna get right away, but you have to be get used to it.
Yeah.
Because it cannot be perfect all the time.
Right.
That's the first answer I wanted to answer it. And second one, yes, when I met the moment that vocal or the lead line I wanted to show or presenting to the audience, I tend to make it my body a little bit, because without visual, obviously people looking at you. I mean, you have to know that.
Yeah.
And then you cannot ignore that fact that you are on a stage.
Right.
You are higher than them, and then they are listening to you. And then I know it can get really pressure, but you have to also be able to enjoy that. And then when I'm doing it, I tend to really, because maybe people don't know, because we're not a band. We are on a laptop or little machine that you can only sit. Then when I'm actually, example, easily, like when you filter cut on, maybe you can move your body the way the cut off,
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do that, so people react. People know that I am doing it.
Yeah.
So just little sign, give it a sign that yes, I am doing it, and let's enjoy it together.
They see the connection between your the movement of your body and the sound that you're creating,
100%.
and associate them with
Always
one another.
better.
Yeah.
And example, the namu amitabha, when I'm I know that maybe the conga sound is stop, I change my body a little bit.
Right.
So people know that little stop, So basically, it synchronizes it with your sound and your body.
Yep.
And then that way is always better react, I get. And I like it.
So good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really puts a new perspective on those clips. It's really nice to think about them, hearing what you just told us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about gesture. We should also talk about looks, clothes. This next video that we're going to look at is from a show called Womb, right?
Club name.
A club called Womb. Yeah.
I did a release party there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you're wearing a mirror dress.
Mirror dress.
Was this created especially for the
I made
occasion?
it.
You made it. Amazing.
Yeah.
You had a vision.
Yeah.
Had you ever made clothes before?
Not like this dramatic way, but I had a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great to look at this in the context of the conversation we've just been having,
that'd be amazing.
because the dress and the way you deploy it on stage also brings the sound to life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just in a different way. Let's take a look now. Womb and the mirror dress.
Emotions wait all around. The shame covered pride coming through. But remember, there will trust that been on. Find your purpose when the mask around my begins. Look at the mess you made. Look at the words you say. Slowly, slowly,
Machìna performing at Womb wearing the famous mirror dress. Some people love dressing up, right?
Yeah.
Some people hardly think about their clothes at all. Mm-hmm. Can you go on stage in normal clothes? Like, sorry, not you. I mean, like, can a person? Do you think a person can go on stage wearing just normal clothes?
Normal clothes. I mean, if you think suitable on you,
Yeah.
if you feel comfortable,
Yeah.
yes, of
Yeah.
course you can.
Right.
But the reason I made that dress actually, I had a clear idea that about this album called Compass Point, which is released 2021. Yeah, and I have a concept that mirror, which is like knowing yourself.
Right.
And then there was whole idea was mirror, and then I wanted to really fully express about the idea of everything conceptual thing. And then I asked to make it whole club, like a reflection. And actually you couldn't see the video clip, but actually it was like whole club was mirror.
Wow. What? The walls were covered in
Walls
mirrors?
was covering
Oh my
everything.
God.
Not exactly mirror because this cost wasn't really, yeah, we have to think about budget too,
Yeah.
practically. But it was like everything reflection, and then also I like to ask, I was asking to the mirror and mirror reflection with the laser, so they're looking at each other and reflecting together. And then obviously I wanted to make mirror dress because because when people see me, they can see themselves too. So it was everything about the concept that knowing yourself, looking at yourself.
Yeah.
Because I at the time I was believing that knowing yourself was the most important human being. I think if you don't know yourself clearly and not understanding who you are, you cannot really truly communicate to others.
Yeah.
And because I wanted to communicate to the world and other, even to your family or friends, I wanted to take really deep time to have the process to knowing yourself.
It's such a lovely, playful way of bringing visually to life a really serious idea, right? Like of course, this idea of knowing oneself, which you took really seriously, right? You spent lots of time alone. You were in Carl Jung. This dress is a product of that idea. But I also wonder if the dress gave you ideas on stage. Like I was just thinking, if I was wearing that, then I would probably move really differently. You know, it's like it's super exciting to see, of course, to see all the lights in the venue, like reflecting off it. I imagine that a person would move differently wearing that than they would if they were wearing something else. Did the dress inspire you?
dress was actually inspired from the albums,
Yeah.
but it was really heavy
Yeah.
first, and then I had to cut. So I went to the mirror shop and I bought like big, huge mirror, and I actually cut by myself with a knife. And then my hands was really hard. I mean, I had to drill everything and make it hole for it. It was really hard, tough
Incredible.
job, but I really wanted to do it. I wanted to show what I'm thinking, and then I think that's really important to being an artist, that really focusing and kind of dive in who you are and doing it kind of extreme way.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of also important to showing your thinking and then positions. Yeah.
A few years ago, I read Grace Jones's memoir, or she says it's not a memoir, but it's like the story of her life told in fragments. And she tells a great story in there about how she figured out how to perform her music back in the disco era, right? She said that all the other singers of that time had a lot of synchronized dance movements, and it was quite like flashy and active, you know. And she didn't really know how to do that, but she also didn't feel like it suited her music. So.
Right.
Instead of doing that, she hit on this totally different idea. It's almost like the opposite. She said, everybody else was dancing. I'm just going to stand. I'm going to pose, you know, and she got that idea because of her previous career as a fashion model, where she had learned how to strike a pose, right? And hold it and make it count, you know, like how to bring an idea or an attitude to life by standing. This story, I was thinking about this recently. It reminded me of you because you also draw on an earlier phase of your music career when you perform as machìna. But I think it's something that a lot of your fans now might not know about, a part of your history. Can you tell us about that? Like what was your experience of performing before you became machìna?
Okay, so I was in obviously a K-pop market, and I want to put the first. I am really lucky to get that special experience, and then still grateful. But at the same time, it was a lot of controls, and then basically it wasn't purely for music.
Right.
I felt, and also I felt a little stuck.
Stuck, yeah.
Before machìna project, I never tried to even had a chance to get to know myself.
Right.
I think that was kind of like why I was really deep dive into knowing myself, these ideas, because all I had to do is to please people, performing and then sellable for money, and that was actually all about it.
Yeah.
And then
it makes sense why you would react against this, and you know, like to make your insistence on selfish art makes sense in the context of this, right? Because what you were having to do before was almost totally the opposite. It's always about other people.
I think so. That was really it.
Yeah.
And I never even get a chance to know myself, what I really like. I was graduate jazz vocal and jazz university, but when I got into the K-pop music, my ideas never got through the producers, which is I never even know. And then I just need to perform. Yeah. And then, I go there practicing like every day, 2 years, 3 years, but I never get to put my ideas on it. I just need to performing, just make it basic, nice performance person. Yeah. And then it was really tough at the same time, but I'm really glad that after that, because I know how. There was extreme way to like be performer. And now I have this idea, and I take time myself to get to know myself, how I really want to be or what I like. Yeah. I think that's really helpful to combine together. So I think so I can be able to share my thinking like with this subject with you guys.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I think people are like the Loop community is really grateful for the opportunity to learn about this, to learn about this phase of your life and also what you learned from it. Paula asks, what lessons did you take from K-pop that you still use now?
Lessons. Oh, there's really many of it, but I think I think most of it, I think it's branding. I think it's as an independent artist, if I want to make it work practically, especially now with all the opportunity to becoming, you can be one broadcasting, even YouTube, everything, social media is, we have this chance to make it branding by your own yourself. And if you use it right way, it could be really something else. And I learned all the process from the pure business way, and I know how to do it, I feel. So I'm using that experience to my machìna project, which is, I am confident that I can, not know something to say no, something to say yes. I think I have eyes to select, to choose for myself and branding myself, I feel. I think that's actually most valuable thing that I'm using at the moment. Using it, actually. Yeah.
Thank you, Paula. Great question.
Yeah.
I also wonder about, because I think maybe people who don't know much about K-pop might not quite grasp this, but you do lots of training, right? Like to break into that industry, you really learn how to sing and how to dance and how to all of these kind of things. When I watch your performances as machìna, I wouldn't think of it as choreographed necessarily. It's not like you have dance moves, but I wonder if there's a sense in which you plan out the moves that you make on stage. Is there a kind of subtle choreography, and is that perhaps also something that you learned in a different way from studying to be a pop star?
No, I don't do that, but I have automatic rhythm on my body because I train so long, and I know the rhythm, how I react, and I think naturally it's coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no choreography, but for certain project, I try to do it, but in the end, it's just, I feel natural is best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
because you're so well trained as a dancer, you can now sort of be spontaneous. And
Yes.
And do without the choreography.
Yes.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the characteristics of pop music is repetition, right? It's like there's the hook, there's the chorus. These things have to be repeated over and over again, so they get in people's brains. And there's also kind of a formula that often repeats from song to song. Certain ways of doing things so that people feel familiar and comfortable with them. And also at the level of performance, like things have to be really standardized so the fans get what they come to the show to see. When I listen to your early music as machìna, I can hear that you were really rebelling against these structures, right? It's like you were just ripping up this rule book, and so I mean that's part of why it's so exciting. Did you also rebel at the level of performance? Like, did you, when in your earlier performance as machìna, were you kind of challenging what you knew or what you had learned up to that point about what a performance should be like or what it is like?
You were really right. So I was really kind of run away from the structure. I tried to run away because I was always in a structure way, and then I really actively tried to not doing it, kind of against, kind of like demonstration perhaps.
Yeah.
And then it's really interesting because I'm coming back to it since I'm my recent project, Special Action. I realized that now I'm ready to be back to communicate people, and maybe I'm ready to please people again. I was trying to really be selfish and try to run away from all the structures, just be awkward. I love it. I just work awkward. Like you expect kick right here, but no, I'm not gonna drop it.
Right.
All the things that people cannot expect. I mean, it was really fun, and I did it, and I liked it. But now, when I'm learning more dance music scene, past probably 3 years, I'm ready to be back for the structures way, which is I know how to do it. I was learn about from pop music, and then I am now communicate myself also that's kind of fun, and actually that's also I like it. It's not about I don't like pop music or anything. I love pop music, but I just needed time to run away from it.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of personal thing, to be honest.
Right, and to find your own way back to it, but a way that made sense for you, or to come to terms with it.
Yes.
Yeah. I notice I notice that when I talk to people, like people in the Loop team or friends of mine, about the topic of this session, and about your music and this whole question of on the one hand pop and structure and rules and the industry, and on the other hand the idea of like a free music or a selfish music or a
free jazz, yeah.
Right. There's a tendency, of course, always to think of these two things as opposite. And it seems like at one point you might have thought so too. Are they though? Like, is it like, in other words, is it possible that music with structure and rules, which kind of appeals to people and makes them dance, can also be authentic and real and from the heart?
For sure.
Yeah.
That's why I love jazz.
Right.
I think jazz has a great opportunity and the amazing structure that having of both. Basically, when you have jam session, you standard jazz, always you have one song, and then you have this jam session, but in a certain bar, and you get to do whatever you want, like scat or free jazz, everything you want. And that's the beauty. That this is also connecting with what I said before, on off time, you go out of scale, but when you go back, you feel like, wow, yeah. There's awkward moment. It's the same thing. I mean, little cows in the order. I think that's the best way to having fun.
This has been a regular refrain in this conversation, right? Is the idea that rules give you freedom, right? In the same way that you talked about, constricting yourself to a scale in a modular improvisation or something like that. It's this tiny rule, a simple rule that allows you to be quite free.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then but you can go free, but if you're coming back, people will like you better.
Yeah. That's right.
And I think jazz is amazing things to do it.
Yeah.
Just be free, but you can come back standard anytime.
And is this what you found with club music, with dance music as well, that there is space in there for you to?
I don't think so. Actually,
No,
club
different.
music is more. I think we were having a talk about this pre-interviews. I found that jazz is club music is much more pop.
Right.
Yeah, there is certain structure and certain BPM also. They're this BPM for the outdoor, this BPM for the indoor.
It's quite strict.
It's really strict.
Yeah.
And then if you missed it, people leave.
Right.
And it's harsh, but you have to accept it.
Yeah.
And I'm learning that. And then I decided to like that, That's why I'm coming back this action project also. I accept that and I like to follow.
Yeah.
With my own way.
In your own way. That's right.
Yeah.
And this is part of the result of your study trips to Berlin, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I can hear exactly what you're talking about in this series of new releases that you've been doing. The series is called Action, right?
Yes.
But each one contains a track that has a different title.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent one is called Respect.
Yes.
I hear you there, trying to stick to the rules,
Yes.
but also still trying to be machìna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying my best.
Yeah.
I mean, I think now after Compass Point, deep diving, knowing myself time, I think I slightly, not fully, but I think I know what I want to present my sound. And then I like to keep that sound, but still making a dance track. And that's what I'm doing experimentally, probably in Action Phrase. And I hope it works. I mean, this is also processing and testing myself, having a limitation and having a rule. As an independent musician, I think it's really important to set the deadline too. So I'm doing it for me and for others, hopefully. Yeah.
I mean, it's still for you, isn't it? This is what you enjoy. It's what you love. If what you love right now
it's
is
actually for
making
me.
people dance and moving them, then this is still it still pleases you.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question from Candy. Thank you, Candy. Asks, how does club culture in Tokyo and Korea influence your sound and performance? I guess the first question would be, does it, or has it?
Mm-hmm.
We've talked a bit about Berlin, but
Right.
Candy's question is about
Yes.
your.
So past 10 years, I was living in Tokyo, so I am not quite confident to saying any opinion in Seoul, but I heard great story from there. I cannot wait to go back and perform there.
Great.
But if I focus on Tokyo one, since I'm basing there, there's really solid and niche cultures. Actually, the first techno crush actually from Japan. They're really precise and really minimal and clear
Right.
sound. And I know it's not that bigger enough compared than if I want to compare it to Europe scene or Berlin especially. But there's definitely core belly thing sound there, and especially there counts so much details. And then basically, this is actually good maybe answer I can maybe throw out that if you think about kick, before Berlin experience, I never even thought about putting reverb kick on it. Kick needs to be clear and like low frequency. That was my kick.
Yeah.
But after Berlin, I starting to put echo on it. The space.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You hadn't heard that before, right?
No, never.
No.
Yeah, that would be my answer, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Candy. Okay, I've saved one of my favorite audience questions for last, but it might take us a little while to get there. We've been talking a little bit about this idea of authenticity, right, and the idea of being yourself, or in your terms, being selfish as an artist, and that part of the problem, I guess, with performance for some people might be trying to reconcile these two things, right? How to being yourself in the studio might be easier or more familiar for people. Being yourself on stage, if you're not a natural performer, if you haven't had training, might be intimidating and strange. But then I also wonder, when we are on stage, are we really ourselves? Which I guess brings me to the question, like when you are, it's a question from Simona, actually, from the Loop community. Is Yohi identical to Machina? Like, are these the same person, or when you're performing on stage, are you slightly different? Are you not yourself?
That's very good question. No, it's different person.
Yeah.
But that's also Yohi too.
Right. An aspect of yourself.
Yeah. But it's different.
How, if you had to describe what's different,
right?
What is Machina like that Yohi is not?
Yohi is really, really shy person.
Yeah.
I am very shy and I'm kind of more studio person, to be honest. I like being myself, making sound, weird sound, and I love like one sine wave. I love to hear that. It's just like really nerdy kind of moment. But I know that Machina needs to be playful. Not needs to be, but I like to be. And I switch myself like that person. Sometimes alcohols help, but not usually. But I know inside my mind, I have that side. I can be really fun. I know that. And then I can be singer, I can be performer, but I can be also really just shy girl that just drinking wine by myself, listening sine wave from the Ijo.
I think lots of people in the Loop community would be really, really
relate, right?
Yeah, they would relate for sure. And also they would be. It's certainly encouraging for me to hear this too. Like it might be the first conclusion you might draw, as an artist, is that if you're shy, then it just doesn't make sense for you to be up there on stage or to be, or to put on a show. But actually, you do both, right? Like you hold on to your identity as a shy person, who likes to be alone and make music. But you've also figured out a way to create this, like a slightly different version of yourself.
Yes. I think you have to try
perform.
first because I think I trained to performer. I was always shy, but I allowed myself to do it, try it. And who knows, maybe you think you're shy and you cannot be a performer, or you're really like nervous, but just try it. And then not just one, maybe like 2 or 3 times or 5 times, and then see what happens, how you feel.
Right. The first one is going to be the first pancake, isn't it? It's
Exactly.
The second one, after a while, you might get into a rhythm.
I'm pretty sure you'll find yourself. If it's really, really no, then no. You'll find a way. I'm visual and anything. But I think you really have to try once. We all have like different versions of themselves, and then just needs to be shine. Yeah.
Great advice from Yohi for shy people. Yohi, thank you so much for this conversation
so
today.
much.
This time went extremely fast.
All right, okay.
We talked for an hour. Thank you so much for all of your questions too, like for all the input that you've given to this session, for your curiosity about Yohi's music and about the art of performance in general. This has been, it's exciting.
Wonderful.
Right? Really nice.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to you for spending some time with us here at Loop.
Likewise.
And I really want you to go check out Yohi's new series of releases. It's called Action. The most recent, this one is super fresh, right? Respect just came out last week.
Yeah, 2 days ago, I guess.
Yeah. Don't stream it. Go to Bandcamp. But you can't stream it, right? It's on. You got to go to the.
Only Bandcamp.
Only
I
Bandcamp,
didn't put anywhere streams website.
Bandcamp. Machìna, Action.
Thank
Yohi,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.